Okay, here we are.
I hope everyone heard me say that too.
No, they didn't. Oh gosh, we back.
What's up? Okay, and look, I have a special guest. A special guest.
Special guest.
Y'all, let's talk about some things Krista does are not nice. So I took my braids out and I've just been wearing my natural hair. And yesterday I was sick. I'm still trying to get over it.
We both
are
sick.
struggling.
Yeah.
And I was in a meeting with Kevin and I was like, and y'all, my hair, like it had a position.
Welcome to the Black Hair Show, people.
Yeah. And I was like, I'm sorry you have to see me like this. And he was like, don't worry, I've seen it before. And I was like, oh, darn. Thanks for helping me feel better, friend. And then today when I got to work, Krista was like, wow, your hair looks like 1983.
It's sort of a mullet.
It's not like a mullet.
Mullet thing.
And this is how we are starting the family meeting. Welcome to the family meeting, everybody.
Oh gosh, now let us know that you're watching. Uh-oh.
The legend is here. Yes.
Let us know you're watching.
Oh, you got your earring in.
Yeah, I told you I would.
We won't go down that story.
She wouldn't help me. So
there were people waiting. Her earring hole is crooked. And so then she's sitting up here 5 minutes trying to get this thing. And then she, Monique, why won't you kick it? Come help me with my earring. I can't help you with your earring. That hole looked like the 5 freeway going on in and out.
Here, get your microphone and your correct zip code there. Okay. All
right, let's go.
All right, so
the
only reason I'm doing this is because of the whole LA thing. You're sick. I've been sick. I wanted to make sure we had a family meeting.
Because if it was up to me, we weren't having a family meeting
again.
Y'all, when I'm sick, I should not be around people.
She disappeared.
I definitely am not nice. I'm not one. Mo flu is definitely worse than man flu. I will tell you that. So Krista graciously helped with the family meeting this week, to which I want to say thank you. Yes.
Okay, so let's talk about the riots.
Let's talk about them. Let's do it.
All right, first thing we got to put to rest is yes, we are safe. Everything that's happening in Los Angeles is happening actually in a very small area, and it's about an hour away from where we live.
Yeah.
So I haven't seen anything out here in the Inland Empire.
There was nothing in the Inland Empire. I think there was something in Glendale
popping off.
Yeah, but it was just like a protest at a hotel, and I don't think it got violent.
Okay.
I think it was just a protest. But yeah, so in downtown LA, which is like an hour from here, it's about 1 square mile is where the protests are at. There were some protests in Compton, but that again was at least the ones I saw, I think on Friday, were really just centered around this one intersection that I think is closer to the federal building down in Compton. But it's not like all of LA is not.
LA is a big place.
It's very big. It's 500 square miles.
Yeah.
And so it is not that every place or everything like that is up in arms. It's really not. There are people just going about their
people
day.
Going about their lives. Yeah.
I mean, even 2 or 3 blocks over from the riots, people are still going on about their day. People are going to work. We've had the BET Awards down there.
Yeah.
We had Christian Slater get his star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. People ain't fazed because there's a couple people,
getting
down there getting crazy.
Now I know that on the news, if you watch the news, it looks like we're all crazy. Everything's burning down. It's not like that. So,
but there are different spots that have hot spots, and so downtown LA is a hot spot. Santa Ana has been a hot spot.
That's down in the OC
area, Orange County. What else? Compton is a hot spot.
Yeah.
But then you'll see like pop-up protests. So we saw a pop-up protest in Glendale. We saw a pop-up protest in Whittier. And in
but those were over
area.
Pretty quick and contained. And so Elaine's asking, like, is everything blown out of proportion? Well, I think symbolically, and we're going to talk about what all of this means from an ideological standpoint, I think that what's happening is important. But in terms of the scope, I would say, like, given how large Southern California is, I don't know.
I think yes, for this reason.
Okay.
And this reason only. Most people aren't familiar with LA. And because they're not familiar with LA, and then the news continues to put on all of these,
all the crazy town,
all the crazy stuff that's happening.
Yeah.
And people who aren't in LA or familiar with LA don't have any way to conceptualize where is this and what's happening. Like, I was looking at a news, like a regular, like just street news person out here on Channel 7, and
Channel 7's the
ABC network.
affiliate.
And so you have one guy standing on this side of the corner, but then you have somebody else standing on the opposite side of the corner facing their camera a different way. It looks like two completely different areas, and it looks massive.
Yeah.
But that isn't the actual case.
Yeah.
And so that's what I mean by blown out of proportion, is that if you're not familiar, yes, it is blown out of proportion because you don't understand that this is still just in 1 square mile.
So Monique watches the mainstream news, and I get my news from X. If you know who the correct quality citizen journalists to follow, you get the news actually more accurately, and usually hours to days before everyone else.
So let me offer some other perspective. I have not watched the news. Like, I haven't watched real TV since I've been home from South Africa. And when I do get news, it is through like street journalists or things that Krista will send me or Kevin will send me and things like that. But this time I wanted to see what would our regular LA newscasters say. So I intentionally watched the news.
The regular news,
the stuff,
ABC,
the free TV stuff. And it is quite eye-opening and quite different than the stuff that Krista sees. But you also can see the propaganda and the push that is coming. Like, they have to be paid to be able to. I'm like, there can be no other way that everyone in your news station automatically says the exact same thing and has the exact same sentiment toward everything. And then you all couple it together with Pride Month. Let's fight for equity. I'm confused.
In my opinion, the mainstream news is like worse than propaganda. We were talking about that earlier today. I think it like borders on psychological abuse because of how much fear mongering there is. It's really bad. So we're going to try to separate some fact from fiction here, and then offer some biblical perspectives on what's happening.
Yeah. Wait, there was, Elaine says it looks mostly unpeaceful. I do think that, and Krista and I went back and forth with this, there are a lot of things that the news is showing that does look mostly unpeaceful.
Yeah.
There are people that I know who have been at the protests from the beginning, who said that the protests actually started out as peaceful, which makes me wonder if some of the groups that are meant to agitate ICE, or some of the anarchists actually have really created a situation and taken over a situation that really wasn't, anyone's heart in the original beginning.
Well, let's talk about how it all started, because there's so much misinformation even about that. Because when you and I were talking earlier, you said, well, it started like this. I said, no, it didn't. That's not what it was at all. So here's how it started. I'm going to play this clip. I'm going to play this clip that was with Tom. I think you say his name, Tom Homan.
Yeah, Homan.
That he was on Dr. Phil last night. Now, look, I'm not here to promote Dr. Phil. I just like this clip because it was kind of short, and we can play it, and it's only 90 seconds. So that sounds good to me. But this explains how all of the events started. It was not an ICE raid. Let me repeat.
Yeah.
It was not an ICE raid. They did not send ICE to some buildings in downtown LA to start rounding people up. That is not how this all started. I know you've heard it 1,000 times on the news that that's what happened, but that's not what happened.
But that is not what our local news stations are saying.
Yeah.
And it is, I believe, to just spark such fear and dread in people.
Okay, let's just watch this really quick little summary from Tom Homan. I think this is helpful.
This warehouse and retail outlet that you served warrants on, the belief is, and the evidence suggests, that this is a cartel-related business here in the United States, that this money, the $80 million that they are suspected of undervaluing, the double-digit millions in tariffs that they are suspected and will be charged with violations on, income tax evasion. You believe that all of that is benefiting an illegal cartel, a cartel in Mexico or Colombia. Do you know which cartel?
No, it's a larger investigation, and this company is one of many that we're searching and gathering evidence on the fact that much of the money in this industry
It's very unfortunate
is laundered to Colombia and Mexico in support of cartel activities. We also got tax evasion, and we also got customs fraud. And you know, ICE, big part of ICE responsibilities are customs laws, customs enforcement. So this is one business out of many we're looking at. So it's a part of a bigger investigation. And as we gather more and more evidence, then we'll decide what we want to criminally prosecute, you know, specifically for.
Okay, so basically ICE had warrants. They had gone through the courts. They had the proper warrants. They went there to investigate fraud and tax evasion and
Human trafficking.
possibly human trafficking, and that there was just a lot of customs fraud was another aspect of it. So they went there with warrants to open this investigation of, you know, beginning to arrest people and that kind of a thing. Well, what they have around town here, and I don't know about other cities, I don't know if this is just an LA thing, but there are apparently what are called rapid response groups, people that go around Los Angeles and look for ICE vehicles and or ICE personnel. And then they have some kind of a home base and they call back and they report where ICE is. And then apparently people flock to that location and then try to interfere. And that interference can be, you know, blocking and yelling and that sort of a thing.
They'll film and things like that.
Yeah.
So I've actually seen one of those things take place. It was posted on the news, but the way that it's set up is not that this is a rapid response intervention, but that these are just people who happen to be there and they are now yelling at the ICE officers and they're intervening and things like that. And this actually, the one I saw, resulted in the guy being freed.
So I wasn't aware of this whole rapid response situation, but here's our mayor. I think that this is like after the first day of the rioting, actually alluding to these rapid response people. And so this is a 25-second clip that I'm going to play here. And this is again our mayor, Karen Bass, and who's probably a communist. And I mean that in the technical sense. So here we go. Oh, sorry.
We have not received word today. As of now, we have not received words of raids. I think you all understand that the city is not notified when ICE goes to a workplace. And what we rely on, frankly, is reporting.
So there's lie number one, that they went to do an ICE raid. That it's just not what was happening. There was not an ICE raid, but she's already, the first day after everything's happening, she's already giving that kind of a setup. All right, let's continue.
From the community, especially the immigrant rights organizations that have formed the Rapid Response Network. That is usually how we hear about a raid taking place.
Okay, so this immigrant advocacy, immigrant rapid response thing, this is what happened, I think, to Tom Homan's ICE people, is that they got seen.
Charged.
They
Yeah.
got seen.
Yeah.
And then that's how all of this happened. And that's, from what I understand, not terribly unusual. Like, this is what happens. There's a organization here in Southern California called CHIRLA, which is one of these immigrant advocacy groups that goes around and looks for ICE people. And Kelly's asking, my question after I saw this was, do these people not have jobs?
Well, I was trying to figure out what people she was talking about. Is she talking about the people who get picked up? Or is she talking about like?
No, she's talking about CHIRLA. Oh, you mean Kelly? Yeah, I think
Yes.
she's talking about CHIRLA and these rapid response.
Oh, I thought she was
groups.
talking about the immigrants who get
No,
picked up.
no.
Well, yeah, but I think that depending on the amount of money that CHIRLA has, your job can be a rapid response person. It's kind of like social work. Social work, at least out here, have rapid response people. So
yeah, I think that is their job, or that some of these are funded, and we're going to get into some of the funding, but it's funded by NGOs and foundations and stuff like that. And so this is what they're paid to do.
The protesters in rapid response.
Yeah. And so then things kind of escalated pretty quickly from there. And now the narrative that the governor and the mayor are trying to sell us at this point is that
we didn't need no help.
We didn't need no help. There's nothing serious happening. There's just a bunch of people peacefully protesting ICE raids, and we're not down with the ICE raids.
It's
here
a peaceful
in
protest. Don't
California.
look at that burning car. Oh no, don't look at those 4 burning cars. Don't look at the freeway that's shut down. Don't look at the police vehicles.
The rocks being thrown off the overpass.
That was thrown off the overpass.
So don't look at that. That wasn't happening.
Well, no, it did happen, but it was peaceful.
So here's the narrative that then Karen Bass comes on a day or so later, and she's wanting to sell us that this was just all peaceful protesting. Now, I couldn't find it back. There were some awesome videos where people had Karen Bass on one side and then stuff burning on the other side. It was fantastic. But I couldn't find those videos back.
Yeah, the Apple store, the Adidas store.
Yeah.
There was
but that was arguably after the National Guard showed up, was the Apple store thing. But yeah, it's crazy town. It's crazy town. Okay, let me see if I can get her. Oh, she's not there. All right, let's do this view. She'll be micro. All right, here we go.
Hi. So what are you and your police force? I know how busy you are preparing for the hours ahead. What are you expecting on that front?
Well, I just have to say that if you dial back time and go to Friday, if immigration raids had not happened here, we would not have the disorder that.
Can we just restate again? There wasn't an immigration raid. There was no ICE raid that started all this. Just clarifying. We were investigating tax fraud and related crimes. Okay, continuing.
Went on last night. I will tell you that it is peaceful now, but we do not know where and when the next raids will be. That is the concern, because people in the city have a rapid response network. If they see ICE, they go out and they protest. And so it's just a recipe for pandemonium that is completely unnecessary. Nothing.
But do you
So
notice,
we're going to just normalize.
Do you notice that it is very similar to, was it Kamala who said it in 2020?
Yeah.
Like we should expect this, or like it really, I don't know if it was it wasn't Foucault, but it's basically that we are the products of our environment, that people would be good if the environment around them was just different. And it doesn't really speak to, these people have a different culture and worldview from a lot of Americans, but definitely from the Christian worldview. Like there is
She wants to normalize interfering with government agents through these
agitation.
Yeah, but she wants to innocuously call them rapid response people and immigration advocates. But these are just revolutionaries who want to dismantle our country and our culture. Let's just call a thing a thing. Okay.
But it's not their fault.
Yeah.
Because if this wasn't going on over here, then they wouldn't respond that way.
Yeah. And yeah. So even the police in the beginning, it's so frustrating because even the police chief, Jim McDonnell, who, I'm very much like, I want to back the blue. I want to be all about it. I have a very close friend that I grew up with and am still in contact with. He's very high up in Southern California policing. And like, we are not anti-police at Center for Biblical Unity at all. But these kinds of statements, when the police say things like this, I just have to wonder, like, are you being held hostage? Like, what's going on here? Because here's the police chief's statement. The LAPD became aware that federal law enforcement agencies conducted activities in Los Angeles. I'm aware that this may cause anxieties for many Angelenos. So I want to make it clear the LAPD is not involved in civil immigration enforcement. So in other words, LAPD doesn't enforce federal law. Okay. And that they will not assist or participate in any of the deportations, and they will not try to determine an individual's immigration status. So he's basically saying we are not going to help the government enforce federal law, which just seems to go against why we have police. Like, I have a lot of questions.
Well, the police belong to the state. They don't
I know.
belong to the federal. But
I know.
But because we are a sanctuary state,
Exactly.
it would not align for them to be like, hey, come on in.
But to I just wonder if he takes these positions like under duress, because it just goes against the ethos of protect the innocent, punish the guilty.
Depends on how you define innocent and guilty.
Yeah. Okay.
Because at this point, who are the guilty in all of our regular broadcasts on like regular real news? We are the guilty, and the ones who are out there rioting are the innocent.
Yeah. You're right. It just puzzles me why we're going to have local law enforcement not enforce federal law. That seems weird to me.
Because they don't have to.
So, and then
my mic needs more volume.
I've already turned you up almost all the way.
Sorry, maybe
you need to get closer to it.
Maybe it's just the bass in my voice from being sick. Sorry, friends.
Okay, so then a day or so later, here's how the chief comes on and describes the current reality that they're in. So that first message was like the first day, in the first hours. Well, as things wore on and got kind of crazier, here's the chief's description of the situation.
As far as people are worried about the violence that we're seeing, this violence that I've seen is disgusting. It's escalated now since the beginning of this incident. What we saw the first night was bad. What we've seen subsequent to that is getting increasingly worse and more violent. Tonight we had individuals out there shooting commercial-grade fireworks at our officers. That can kill you. And we have adapted our tactics to be able to have a chance to be able to take these people into custody and to be able to hold them accountable. We are overwhelmed as far as the number of people out there engaged in this type of activity and the type of things that they're doing. They'll take backpacks, and the backpack will have a cinder block in it. They have a hammer, and they'll break up the cinder block and use that, pass it around to throw at officers, to throw at cars, and throw at other people.
So
that was for the people who were more ingenious to bring your own brick. Those who didn't bring their own brick decided to just basically jackhammer the sidewalk.
Hammer the sidewalk and break stuff off, throw rocks that were in planters. But notices were that we are overwhelmed. And so what they thought they could kind of keep under control, but without control, just by psychologically comforting people and saying, hey, we're not going to cooperate with ICE raids, everything will be okay. Well, then things really escalated quickly, and law enforcement got overwhelmed. And it does seem at this point that I don't know. I feel like our officials they just they don't want us to be a civilized city. I mean, after enduring all the fires back in January and seeing how the government officials have just been slow to act and just deny and blame the president, it just seems like they really just want to ruin the state.
Oh yeah, 100%. But I mean, I feel like that's years in coming.
Yeah.
That isn't to me anything new.
But it's escalating to me.
Yeah.
It's getting worse.
Yeah. I don't know if they want us to be the first, like, truly on paper socialist state in the union.
Yeah.
I don't know what the goal is or what's in it. Like, what's the benefit for Maxine Waters and Newsom and Karen Bass? Like, but there has to be some benefit.
So let me explain, and I would love for you to jump in on this, is like some things about Southern California culture. Both of us have lived here our whole life. People who are undocumented are part of our way of life here. Mm-hmm. And growing up in the 70s, 80s, you all know that there's a percentage of our population that is undocumented, but there's also a significant part of our population that has a heritage here that goes back many, many generations, because we were originally a Spanish colony and then briefly part of, quote unquote, Mexico in the first part of the 1800s, from about like 1820 to 1850 ish. And there are people here who have had that have that ethnicity and that family lineage that goes back generations. And so not every person of, quote unquote, Mexican extraction here is thought of as being here illegally. California is just a very unique place.
Yes.
And when we travel around the country, there's just a vibe here that is just different than other parts of the country. And for the most part, we live a very peaceful existence with a lot of diversity and culturally, and it's just our way of life here. And they're very patriotic and they love America.
But I would say that would be up until recently,
exactly.
Like the last decade,
yes.
Maybe 15 years.
10 to 15 years.
Well, and maybe even before that, because I remember moving to South Africa in 2014, and the area that I moved from was the Glendale, North Hollywood, Burbank, Van Nuys area. And what you would see over there is a lot of MS-13. Like when I lived in South Central, we had Bloods and Crips. When I got to North Hollywood, there was a whole nother Mexican mafia, MS-13, like all of these gangs that were horrible compared to like the stuff that I experienced like living in LA. But that just continued to grow and grow and grow. And so we are now not just dealing with the migrant family that comes over because I really want my kid to have a better hope than what I had. No, we are dealing with cartels and people who are kidnapping and trafficking.
And that's totally different than how it's been up until, like you said, I think 10 to 15 years ago. And so we are a very like tolerant, loving, I feel like that in Southern California, traditionally, there's been just a lot of forbearance for people who are undocumented. And it's part of our way of life here. Mm-hmm. And what I think has happened, though, in recent years is And keep in mind that California hasn't always been as blue of a state as it is now. We had Republican governors through the 90s. We even had Arnold Schwarzenegger.
He was our last Republican governor.
In the in the, like the 2010s ish. But and I know that he wasn't like a conservative Republican, but we were still voting a lot of Republicans into office until Jerry Brown became the governor again. And then after Brown was Newsom. And that's when you really started to see this kind of weird socialist shift where all of a sudden we were passing super crazy policies and laws. And it has not always been that way. And my theory of it, because what I don't like is when people jump in our comments. I have to admit, I have some strong feelings about this. Is that I don't like it when people are like, well, just move. And California is just stupid and crazy and communist. And yes, I'll admit Sacramento is run by a lot of socialists right now. But it hasn't always been that way. And our state is like, what is it, like the 8th largest economy in the world?
I think it's actually less, like, I think it's a better number than that. I think that was an older number. But I want to say it's like 5th or 6th, actually.
It's a high number. We're larger than most countries in terms of our economic importance.
And LA is the 2nd largest city in America.
And does the United States really want to write off the 5th largest economy in the world out of the country and just write us off and forget about us and act like it's okay, just let them burn it to the ground and who cares, and just move away? And those of us who are still here, who are conservative, are like, wait a minute, no, we want to try to fight for our way of life. And we think that everyone's like, well, these are the policies you voted for. No, they aren't. I am not convinced that these are the policies we voted for. I think we have massive problems with voter fraud, and you don't have any idea how easy it is to vote in California. Like, you don't have to show ID. The first time you vote, the only thing you need to show is a utility bill, and you don't have to have any photo ID or anything. And you can go into any voting precinct on voting day and ask for what's called a provisional ballot, and they have to give it to you. I wouldn't be at all surprised if there are people who are paid on election day that go from precinct to precinct and get provisional ballots and vote multiple times. There's dead people voting. There is so much voter fraud here. I think if we were to clear out, and San Francisco does allow non-citizens to vote. But I think that if we were to clean up our voting rolls and start enacting policies of fair voting and transparent voting, I have a feeling California is not a blue state. I think it's probably a swing state. Now, I could be crazy, but I think if we were to really take inventory of our voting fraud, I take issue, and I could be wrong, but I take issue with this characterization of these are the policies you voted for. I'm not convinced that these are the policies we voted for.
I hear you. I do remember with the Trump election, just how much of California was red. And, but we are pulled by San Francisco and we're pulled by LA.
Mm-hmm.
And, the way they go is the way that the state goes. But I could be persuaded that, we might be a swing state, we might be purple or something like that. But at this moment, the way that it looks on paper is that these are the policies that the majority of Californians voted for. And if these are the policies that you vote for, it really reflects your worldview. And this is what you get with this worldview.
And I don't buy it. And I don't like the attitude of people who live in other states who just say, just let California burn. Who cares? We are a massive part of our country's economy. Every American should care about saving California because of what we contribute. We're one of the most beautiful states in the union when we're not defecating in the streets because of all of these socialist
Laws, yes.
policies. Okay. But I was like, man, I want people to fight for us. And it's hard because so many conservatives have left, and no shade on them. I mean, people got to run their own
I
lives.
think people are tired. It's
I-
like, yes, I'm tired of voter fraud. I'm tired of, them not requiring ID to vote, or anybody can vote. I'm tired of the fact that they don't want me to conceal carry. And so now, or even that the bill that they tried to pass earlier this year, where if somebody breaks into your house, you need to run and not fight back. Like, I don't blame anyone.
But isn't that
leaving.
part of the revolution strategy of communists, is just to have constant agitation to the point where you wear people down?
Yes,
that is
a
strategy,
and it does work.
Yeah,
because people are tired. Like, if I feel like I can't defend my property or my family, you can have this state. And yes, it might be that they are passing laws fraudulently, but it's working and it's getting people to leave. And I don't know that I can blame people for leaving because they want to defend their property or their family.
Yeah, no, I understand. And so I said no shade on those people, but
I do agree that the rest of America should care. And, it also makes me wonder, who are those who have any control over things that like Newsom does? Or is he just a renegade who can do what he wants to do?
Yeah, and I think that that's where Trump is trying to, make some hard decisions about how do we bring California into alignment with federal laws, and let's talk a little bit about who's financing all this. And not that, no, it's not what I want. So one entity that's financing this, and this is more of what's happening in New York, but if you want a good follow on X, is an independent citizen reporter named Andy No, NGO. He reports a lot on communist, socialists, and Antifa. He has very reliable stuff. I've followed him for many years. He's not sensational, but very, very consistent in his reporting with stuff. And so I just want to show, like, this is a post that Andy did. And one of the groups behind the agitations, more so in New York City, is the Party for Socialism and Liberation. Now, ironically, this is the same group of the guy who shot those two young Christian Messianic Jews a couple of weeks ago in New York City. And he was part of the Party of Socialism and Liberation. And it's a communist group. And they are demanding the end of immigration enforcement. This is what you're watching on the screen here is from New York. Now, I will say that Mayor Adams in New York is not having all of the craziness. Even though he's a Democrat, he's starting to see the light of, like, Democrats don't want to enforce immigration policies. He's pushing back. He's allowing his police to get things under control, arrest people, and all of that, which
I wish people would step up like that. Florida guy.
I respect. Yeah, the Florida
guy was like,
sheriff.
Try it.
Yeah.
Try it. Fool around and find out today.
So another really good follow, if you're on X, another citizen reporter is a gal named Data Republican. Okay, I want to give a shout out to Data Republican, DATA Republican. She is a new Christian. I know she's a mom. She's deaf. I'm pretty sure she's also a homeschool mom, and her husband owns a small business. And she is a machine. She knows all about computer programming and intelligence analysts. I don't know how she knows this stuff, but she just sort of popped out of nowhere a few months ago. And what she does is she quickly puts together deep dives on who's the money behind crazy stuff. And she is just a research hound. And she, within hours after the protests started in LA, she knew who the money was behind them. And she was giving information to the feds on where the money is. So she has a long thread on X of who's behind the anti-ICE riots in Los Angeles. And, you can go on her timeline and scroll through all of this, but she has the NGOs, who it is. It's the foremost is the Coalition for Humane Immigration Rights, or CHIRLA. And that's the big one. And then the Party for Socialism and Liberation that we mentioned just a minute ago. She gets their EINs and all of this stuff. But here's the kicker. For CHIRLA, just for CHIRLA, this is going to make some people mad. They're funded by your tax dollars.
Yes, to the tune of 34 million?
34 of its $45 million in revenue came from government grants in the last 2 years.
But it came under the Biden administration.
Under the Biden administration. So
we fund the chaos.
We are funding the chaos.
Fund the chaos.
And so when Trump is trying to shut down nonprofits or NGOs or charities, as it's reported on the mainstream media, what you have to know is he's trying to turn off the spigot to a lot of this kind of corruption. Yeah. And as a taxpayer, this is frustrating.
It is. Because here's the thing. California is just I feel like a pilot. But a lot of this stuff is the seeds for it are already laid in other states. And I think that, the way California goes, it's California, New York, the way our states go, then that's how the rest of the country tends to go eventually. And so I can see an attempt of wanting to turn off some of the spigot, or at least slow it down, to slow down the socialist push that really wants to sweep the nation.
So there's one other guy I want to highlight, and then we'll move on to something else here. I'm trying to go through this stuff fast, but the second,
take your time, as we would say in the Black church. Take your time.
The second person who's funding a lot of this is this communist named Neville Singham. And I've never heard of this guy, but again, data Republican, bringing a lot of receipts. And he is somehow connected to the Chinese communists. And he is an American businessman, but a communist, and is really financing a lot of the protests that are happening. He's financed something called the People's Forum, giving them $20 million. He's financed several organizations, but another big backer, finance people, is SEIU. At the AFL-CIO union types. Now the union, the SEIU president actually got arrested in the melee the other day.
Yeah, they had him on the ground.
Yeah, but they're taking out ads. They're calling for solidarity. Come join us at the rally. And there's just the Million Voters Project is another thing that she highlighted. But you can go do a deep dive on Neville Singham and all of these people that are financing this. So it's kind of, it's not like when you were a young person in Los Angeles during the
LA riots,
the Rodney King riots, where it was just organic people in your neighborhood who were upset. They lived there in their everyday lives. They were frustrated.
No, these are anarchists.
This is rent a protest.
Yes. It is rent a protest.
It is. These are not organic, peaceful protests. This is rent a protest that are designed and paid for to destroy our country and our culture. So if you're sympathizing with immigrants, we can have that conversation. But that's not what this is. The thing is never about the thing when you're dealing with communists. Just keep that in mind. So this actually isn't anything to do with immigration. Immigration is the smokescreen, much like George Floyd was the smokescreen 5 years ago, to just wear people down with just the destruction and the anarchy and the agitation, so that we eventually give up and give in and we stop fighting. And there is nothing that is going to be better in our country if we defund the police, if we get rid of ICE, if we get rid of borders. None of those things are going to make our country better, more peaceful, or more just. But this is frustrating. Oh my. All right. I'm not trying to get your blood pressure to go up, Future, but we have to have facts.
Yeah.
Because watching mainstream media is not what you're going to be
Yeah, because
hearing.
my mainstream media is all looking at how families are being ripped apart, how ICE is coming in illegally and just like taking people off the streets. Soon, mark my words, soon someone's going to say that ICE deportations are the modern day lynching.
That's already happening.
I have not heard it, but
yeah.
I can just see it in the wings.
It
is the modern day lynching.
It's modern day slavery, plantation, all of that.
It is also very connected to Pride and how,
Pride
is
Month.
Such a big thing out here, and how we should be marching at Pride because we are marching for the equity of all people. It is not just a march for, me because I identify along the LGBTQ plus spectrum.
All right. So then Trump comes out today, and this will be the last news bit. And then I want to change gears and talk about kind of scriptural perspective.
I have some, yes.
So
thanks for letting me hang out with you today.
Yeah. Well, thanks for enduring all of my little shenanigans here. Trump did come out today with a lot of backtracking, which kind of surprised me. Let's watch this clip real quick. It's only a minute.
Targeting in California farmers and people in the hotel and leisure business.
Well, we're not targeting. In fact, if you look today, I put out a statement today about farmers. Our farmers are being hurt badly by, they have very good workers. They've worked for them for 20 years. They're not citizens, but they've turned out to be, great. And we're going to have to do something about that. We can't take farmers and take all their people and send them back because they don't have maybe what they're supposed to have, maybe not. And you know what's going to happen and what is happening? They get rid of some of the people because, you go into a farm and you look and people they've been there for 20, 25 years and they've worked great and the owner of the farm loves them and everything else. And then you're supposed to throw them out. And you know what happens? They end up hiring the people, the criminals that have come in, the murderers from prisons and everything else. So we're going to have an order on that pretty soon, I think. We can't do that to our farmers and leisure too, hotels. We're going to have to use a lot of common sense on that.
So I don't know what that means. That just happened today. That just sounds like a mess. So we're going to let some people stay if you've been here a long time. Are we still vetting them?
First of all,
I have so many questions.
His idea of, then they just go hire the criminals. Criminals ain't going to look for no job. First of all, if I'm the common murderer thief, I have other ways of accessing my money. Second, what's our standard? What are we doing with immigration? What is our standard?
Because we thought we had a standard. Now it's like shifting sand.
It is.
Yeah.
And this is my main issue with the administration's approach to immigration. And I was telling Chris about this, and I will be completely honest. I am extremely frustrated because there is a lot of conversation going around about, well, this is an injustice and that's an injustice and da-da-da-da. And when I think back to where we started from and the way that we, especially in California, have intentionally left our borders open and have promoted for people to come over and incentivize for people to come over. To me, that's an injustice to them, but it's also an injustice to our own citizens because that's not the way a nation should work. We should have borders and we should have border patrol and we should have ways in which people immigrate into a nation or don't.
Orderly.
Yeah. But now we are saying now we need to correct the injustice. I'm completely on board with correcting the injustice, but we need to have a way of correcting the injustice that also doesn't create confusion or
this is confusion
or you can't correct an injustice with another injustice.
Are we gonna? Maybe Trump was just making some kind of off the cuff comment, maybe, but we can't, are we going to, all right, let's just take farm workers since we're talking about California. It's a big issue here. Can we at least have a pathway to getting them on worker visas. You know, we're still going to vet
like
them. We're
something,
going to do background checks. Like,
but what it sounds like
it was
is
so confusing.
we can't get rid of them because we need them. So now there's not value because of their humanity, but there's value because they work in the farm. Like,
yes.
No, like, how are we treating people because they're people? And yes, I get that many of the people who do the things that many people don't want to do, hotel cleaning and farming and all these different things, there is value in their service, but we should not approach this conversation from this value exchange. Well,
it's sort of pragmatic,
it is, and so
transactional.
And then, well, I might be an accountant, or I might have this other thing. I might be a stay-at-home dad or a stay-at-home mom or whatever, and so I don't bring value, so I have to go.
Yeah,
like, what is the standard?
So, a couple things we want to remind people of that are things that we've said in 2020. We're going to say them again because we're kind of circling back. First of all, Romans 12:21 was a scripture that came to me today of do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. But we have to know what the good is, and we have to know what the evil is. And we live in an age where those standards have become very slippery.
They've become very slippery, but unfortunately, they've become very slippery even in the church.
Yes.
Like, where
there was a certain
the standard.
Where's it? You were showing me on social media the other day, an old professor of yours at Biola who was down at the protests and thinking he was doing the good thing of being in solidarity with the immigrants.
Calling the immigrants like scenes from the Nativity. There's no difference between the Nativity and the immigrant.
So
I don't know.
Sorry.
You need some water?
Still kind of recovering here.
Yeah, we just coughing. Don't mind us.
Yeah. But I think that even in labeling, like, okay, what is just or unjust or evil or good is become very difficult because there's different standards. And
yes.
Depending on what your standard is how you know how to identify what is evil or good.
Again, it's a worldview and a culture conversation. And sadly, even definitely within our culture, we have so many standards for, well, this is good, but it's good if you're this person. It's not good if you're that person. But in the church, we're mimicking a lot of the culture. And so now we have this slippery slope between what is good and what is evil, between what is bad or what should we be advocating for. It's like we've left the scriptures to what? Yeah. To what?
So another thing we said a lot in 2020, and we'll say it again, looting is theft. Looting's not good. Looting is not making things just. We are not going to be Robin Hood for Jesus, okay?
But if you are, I got a Coach bag I've been looking at.
Don't encourage people. But I wanted to, just remind people that looting robs very real people of their dignity and their ability to earn a living. And even if you think like you're sticking it to the man because of Apple, well, they're a big conglomerate, it's okay if we rip off phones. No, looting is theft. Let's remember the 10 commandments. The 8th commandment is you shall not steal. So looting is theft.
And you can't encourage it.
You can't encourage it.
Or make excuse for it.
Exactly. And so if we're going to talk about a standard, the Bible is going to be our standard for justice. Looting is theft. And I'm going to say it courageously, unashamedly. And we're not going to get into the conversation about looting is reparations and we're just making things right and evening the scales. No, it's theft. And we're going to call a thing. Okay.
Would you be mad if I looted some gas?
Don't siphon off my gas. Not at $5 a gallon.
Never mind, friends.
I also think Christians need to encourage people to obey the law.
And that's a conversation that we've been having and wondering where are Christian voices in this conversation of how do we talk to people about what it means to obey the law. But again, to me, this comes back to a conversation of our country, the administrations who ran our country allowed for injustice for so long that now obeying the law could look like you don't live here anymore. You could look like your mother may not live here anymore. How do we have that conversation?
Yeah. And I think that the problem is, and Ms. Graham here is bringing it up, is there are immigration laws on the books. They're at the federal level. And are we going to enforce them? Are we going to modify them? What are we doing? But whatever we're going to do, we need to apply them evenly.
Yes.
And that is also a biblical principle of partiality. I'm going to draw your attention again, as we did many, many times in 2020, to Exodus 23, verses 2 and 3. You shall not follow the masses in doing evil, nor shall you testify in a case so as to turn aside after the masses in order to cause justice to be turned to the side, nor shall you be partial to the poor man in his case. We have to have impartiality, that laws are equally applied. We can't have one state doing one thing and another state doing another thing. These are laws at the federal level. Now, if we don't like the laws, we can vote, try to repeal them, elect different people into office, make a case. But right now, the federal law, as it has been on the books for decades, has a lot to say about immigration. Now, ironically, if people go, and I don't have these statistics right in front of me, but if you just go look up immigration statistics, the Clinton administration and the Obama administration deported far more people than the Bush and Trump 1.0 administrations. So this whole narrative that it's fascist or wrong to repatriate people to their home country is just so like 5 seconds ago. I mean, you can go and look for old clips of Obama and Clinton, both Clintons, talking about the importance of legal immigration and deportation. The nickname, one of Obama's nicknames was Deporter in Chief. So you can miss me with the idea that Trump's a fascist because he wants to deport people and implement the law.
Yeah. I mean, because we also, again, thinking about this justice conversation, how is it just to make promises to a group of people who are coming in, but the promises really rely on me because it relies on my tax dollars. It takes from me. That isn't just on my end. You know what I mean? Like, how do we think about justice on behalf of our citizens, but then also justice on behalf of the people who are coming in? They also are humans, and justice, we have to be able to implement, even those who are outside of our borders, having a precedent for what justice will look like so that we are not mistreating them. I believe that it is a mistreatment to offer people promises that we can't keep on, to offer people the promises of your money, or to offer people the promises of my money.
In which case it might be theft. Okay, now here's a little bit of a harder word. Some people might not like this, but
what is it?
I think if we're Christians, we need to challenge each other that if you are someone who has built your business on illegal workers, you are doing something unjust. And you need to either bring your business into compliance and get proper work visas, or hire proper citizens. But some of this is on you.
Yes.
It is on people. I don't want to hear you can miss me with your whining that, well, I have all these warehouse workers and now I'm going to have to shut down and I can't run my business. But you made decisions that were unjust and broke the law. Own it.
Yes. Like we have an administration who now wants to go back to correct injustice, but there are so many layers and so many people and organizations and businesses that have participated with this injustice. It is absolutely ridiculous. But if business owners are participating, to me, they need to be held accountable as well.
I agree. I think that it's just I'm so sick of the whining of people like, I can't do my business. Well, you built your whole business on breaking the law. So especially if you're a Christian, you need to get to some repentance, do something, and bring yourself into compliance. We know the laws are hard. It is hard to be in California.
Yes, it is.
We are tempted every single day to break the law at CFBU. There are so many.
Don't say that so loud.
But
it ain't
but we
like
have
that.
to. There's a lot of laws.
Sometimes, not every day.
A lot of days.
3 out of 5, 2 out of 5.
It's a lot. I mean, at the start of the year, she told me like, oh, there's 19 new laws we have to comply with for labor. And it would be easy to just, well, let's just not do this, or how do we shade this, or whatever. It costs more. It's more time intensive. But if you've built your whole business and you're a Christian, you can miss me with your conversation about integrity, honesty, blah, blah, blah. Okay, here's another controversial one.
Okay, so I can say, I'll say this. I can see how if you had a business 20 years ago, and hiring people, but why didn't you put them on a pathway to be able to get what they actually needed to work?
Exactly. You should have, if you could help them get compliant. Okay, you're not here legally. Let me help you get the work visa.
Let's put you on a trajectory.
Yeah,
yeah.
There's things that could have been done here. Okay, here's another controversial one. Should we, as Christian leaders, voices, pastors, encourage people, as public figures, should we encourage people who are here illegally to repatriate themselves and go home?
Oh, girl, that's a hard one.
There's an app for that. There's an app for that. You can go on the Home app. You can register, and they will get you a plane ticket to your home country on a stipend of $1,000, and you will be allowed to apply to come here legally in the future. Now, if you're caught,
you have to wait a certain amount.
You have to wait like 8, 13, potentially up to 15 years before you can apply to come back. Mm-hmm. So should we encourage people to obey the law and repatriate themselves, to self-deport effectively?
That's a hard conversation. That
nobody wants to have that conversation with me,
and nobody does. Nobody also, they don't want to have the conversation because they don't want to have to do that hard. That's a hard step. You know what I mean? Like that's really something to, like, how committed are we to obeying the law? How committed are we to actually playing this thing all the way out? And if we do play
if I'm
that
a
all
pastor,
the way out, how do I then, because now, like, how do I support the family and stand with that family if that mother has to go back, or that father, or if it's both parents? Like, what do we encourage them to do with their kids? But again, this is what I'm saying. We've participated with injustice for so long that now trying to clean all of that up.
But we can't fix an injustice with another injustice.
I know.
That's not going to work.
I know.
And if we as Christians have to advocate for things, I mean, if someone's a pastor and they're giving biblical counsel to their people,
ain't nobody giving no biblical counsel to their people on this. Ain't nobody talking about this. I think the pulpits are real quiet on this one. Ain't no, ain't nobody, no.
Okay. All right. Another controversial question. Are countries without borders unbiblical?
I think so. I think we see a precedent in scripture for some form of border.
So you think it's biblical to have a border?
I think it's biblical to have a border.
Yeah.
You said our countries without
borders
unbiblical. I said, yes, I believe that it is a biblical precedent to actually have a border and to actually protect your nation. I think that is the righteous thing to do. It is the righteous thing for government to do, to be able to protect their citizens, and borders actually do that, because otherwise you just have anybody and everybody.
Well, and this is where, kind of the principle of, protecting the innocent, punishing the guilty. It helps to know who's in your country, who's coming into your country. Mm-hmm. And we have to know those things. What's interesting that I came across this week was
that's funny.
This is a blog. This is a website run from by a lawyer who deals with Mexican law, and he had a little blog post here. Penalties for illegally entering Mexico. This is a blog post from 2022, and he goes through all of the Mexican immigration penalties.
Mhm.
And if you're there illegally, it is a felony under Mexican law to be there illegally, and all of the articles and what you'll be at risk for. Oh, look, at risk of deportation.
Yeah.
Rather than going to prison.
But that's the same.
Any foreigner who attempts any against national sovereignty or security will be deported.
Mhm.
But so this seems just for this government to know who's coming in their country, who's living there, what they're doing to some degree, what their activities are. That's, again, going back to the standard of what's good and what's evil. The Mexican government has their laws. They want to have safety and protect the innocent in their country. And yet, for some reason, it's looked upon as being completely unjust when we're trying to do the same thing.
Yeah. But I mean, every country I've gone to has
You've traveled a lot.
Very extreme, warnings. Like, you need to have your passport on you at all times. Don't get pulled over without your passport. And if you are here illegally, you will be detained and deported. I was in Haiti with the exact same rules and laws of what you pulled up in Mexico. Now, I don't plan on personally staying myself, and I am Haitian, but no, like the thought that a government would want to backtrack and just take in people.
Yeah.
Doesn't make sense.
Well, we just got a comment on here that Israel has just struck Iran. So I don't know anything about that, but we'll just put that out there if people want to look into that. So I think that it's a tough issue, but there's a great little booklet that I'm going to put in the description, written by an Old Testament scholar named James Hoffmeyer, and it's called Wise Welcome. You can get it for free. It's a PDF, but it's a nice little summary of a Christian perspective on immigration. And he really makes some good points in the booklet. And I'm just going to hit on a couple of highlights here, and then we'll jump off. But one of them that I don't think a lot of people are aware of is the issue of boundary stones in Scripture. And to move somebody's boundary stone or to have boundaries of your property is kind of a big thing. And attached to theft is not just property, like physical property, but also land property. And this is a very big and important concept in Scripture. But respecting your neighbor's boundary stone, it was part of their inheritance, and it is something that God talks about in his law about the importance of having boundaries and boundary markers. So it doesn't seem like it's anti-biblical to have that kind of a thing. Another thing I'd want to draw our attention to is Leviticus 19:33 and 34, that when a stranger is with you in your land, you shall not do him wrong. You shall treat the stranger who sojourns with you as the native among you, and you shall love him as yourself, for you were once strangers in the land of Egypt. So legal sojourners should be tolerated, and that there is a version of kind of the golden rule with them.
But see, this is not, so this is the main Bible verse that people who support open borders use.
Yeah.
Because they say, well, it doesn't say the legal stranger.
Right.
It's just anyone. And because it's just anyone, we should be treating all people as if they are Americans, all kids, and that's.
But the operating assumption is that it's in your land and that you know what your land is, and that is a boundary marker or a border.
But when they cross your border, okay, so when they cross into your border, you are to treat them the same way that you treat any other citizen, whether they cross here legally or not.
Under the law, I think that that is true in the sense of fair trials and things of that nature. But in the Old Testament context, if you were to look at the context of this verse, it's about strangers who are living among the Jews who have an understanding and an appreciation for Israel's God.
Like Ruth.
Yeah.
I have made your God my God. Yes,
Right.
I understand this.
Yeah.
I'm just telling you.
Well, that verse can't do all that heavy lifting.
Oh, it does. that verse is bench pressing.
Yeah. But
what I want to highlight in the concept of boundary markers and things like that is that within a boundary are certain beliefs, are certain systems and worldviews and things like that. And when those boundaries are not watched over, and to some degree, like police, like we need to be watching out on what's happening inside of the boundary of our home, what's happening inside of the boundary of our nation. And when we just allow people to roguely come over and to live as if they are still on the outside of those boundaries with their culture and their worldviews inside of our boundary marker, it makes for a mess.
Yeah.
It makes for tons of different ideologies. And so now it's okay to burn your building. Now it's okay to kill you because I don't have the same value of life, of human life that you do. We have to understand words like culture, worldview, and assimilation in this conversation. And I don't hear a lot of those words coming up. I do hear a lot of the words of immigration and deportation, but we're not actually looking at some of the root causes. We are tired of MS-13.
Yeah.
We are tired of Mexican mafia and the cartels that run our streets out here.
Yeah. And that's where protecting the innocent is connected to all of this. And again, as we wrap up here, like this isn't every single thing about immigration. You can go check out more. I'll put in the description a link to another discussion we had about immigration issues with Chuck Holton, who's an independent reporter.
That was you and Kevin.
Yeah, it was Kevin and I on All the Things several months ago. There's a lot of great information in there. I'm going to put a link to this little booklet that I was showing you some screen caps from. But these are tough issues. But like I said in January, the question of the year, I think, is going to be, what is a nation?
Mm-hmm.
And we are in the thick of it right now of what does it really mean to be a nation? What does it really mean to be an American in our context?
And I would say what does it mean to be a nation? Actually, you can put bullet points under that, under what does it mean to be an ethnic group? What does it mean to be a culture? What does it mean to have a distinct worldview? But in that conversation, what does it mean to have a distinct Christian worldview and to walk that out? I know many people want to say, America's a Christian nation and things like that. I would push back on that, but I would say that within the American culture and nation, we should have Christians who are distinctly different.
Yeah. So, and someone's mentioning on here, that Europe's having a lot of the same problems. I think everybody's kind of in a little bit of an identity crisis right now. We're, the European Union, well, maybe being in a union wasn't such a hot idea after all. Maybe we should go back to being nations. What does it mean to be a nation?
But what are the reasons?
There's a lot
why?
of intertwined questions.
Why are they having these problems? Because they have also been convinced that their borders mean nothing.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying, is that there's this whole what is a nation thing has a lot of interconnected issues and questions into it. And I think immigration is one of those pieces.
Yeah.
And it touches our lives. Many of us know immigrants. You might know people who are going through struggle on these issues and thinking about self-deporting or whatever. And so hopefully we've given you some things to think about. If you have more questions, write to us. We'll try to develop more shows.
Yeah.
We know that there's just a lot happening right now. So thanks for being here. Share the show.
As believers, I would say this, that we should be praying.
Yeah.
We should definitely be praying for those who are in government as much. And I'll be honest, as much as I don't like praying for Newsom, okay, because he really just irked me and get under my skin, I should be praying for him most. We should be praying for those who are in this struggle and conversation of, do I self-deport? Pray for those who have been detained and are in detention centers. Pray for their children. Can you imagine your father or your mother just not coming home? Like, that's traumatic, and it's very sad. Now, just because something is sad does not mean that it is necessarily illegal. It does not necessarily mean that it is unjust. We can hold many things at the same time. Something can be just and sad. And so pray for them. Pray as they are trying to navigate, families not being together around the dinner table, or, things like that. But pray for them. We should just be pray.
Yeah.
If any, pray. Like, you don't know who to pray for, just ask God for wisdom, and that our leaders would have wisdom, and that they would participate justly.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Share the show.
Yeah.
And
It's time for us to go, friend.